Howie Roseman is on a heater. We know what he did on Thursday night. He went after Alabama's linebacker slash pass rusher, however you want to label him, Jihad Campbell, who causes chaos everywhere. I call him a disruptor. He is just a machine on the defensive side. We know about his versatility. That was a great start to the new additions that will walk into the NovaCare complex. But just about 30 minutes ago, the Eagles were on the clock in the second round, and they get safety Andrew Mukuba from Texas. Now, as I was watching the board fall, there were a few names I was interested in that I thought would be electric if the Eagles could snag them. Whether it was Ezeraku, Boston College, 16 and a half sacks as a defensive end. He goes to the Cowboys. Woof. You got Trey Amos, just a few picks ahead of you, cornerback, going to the Commanders. Woof. So what was Howie going to do? Well, he gets his replacement, potentially, for CJGJ, and we are going to hear from Emmanuel Acho in 1 second. But I find it very interesting that when I look up some of the strengths of what Makuba brings to the table, one of the first things that popped up was versatile chess piece who's logged significant snaps at deep safety, in the box, and at slot. I think we're starting to see a little trend here with one Howie Roseman, huh? He loves the versatility. He loves the ability for everyone to be almost Swiss Army knives. How do you want to use Cooper DeJean? How do you want to use Campbell? How do you want to use Makuba? There's so many options for Vic Fangio, and that tickles my fancy. So I just want to put that out there before we get started. And if you want to join the conversation, I'd love to hear from you on how you've sort of digested the start of this draft. Now, you don't have to know everything about Andrew Mukuba. I don't know everything about Andrew Mukuba, but it's more about the idea. It's more about the concept. Here's Howie Roseman utilizing his picks on youth on the defensive side to fill holes. You trade CJGJ, we need help there, boom. You lost a lot of pass rush. You need help there? Boom. I love the philosophy. I love the idea. I love the value. I love what these kids can potentially be if they maximize their strengths. So I love it all. I'm kind of curious what you are feeling tonight as you've seen the first two picks from Howie with potentially another one on the way. 215-592-9494. Okay, Emmanuel Acho took it to social media to give his instant reaction to the Eagles selecting Andrew Mukuba out of Texas, and this is what he had to say.
Howie Roseman, well freaking done. The Eagles got 2 day one starters in this draft already. Andrew Mukuba out of Texas. I watched every single one of his games as a Texas alum. The biggest thing, he is an enforcer. When you lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson at safety, you lost an enforcer. Andrew Mukuba, remember the hit he laid out, and if you missed it, go look it up. Hit he laid out on Georgia's quarterback on the goal line in the SEC championship game when Texas played Georgia. Completely smacked the dude. He also is very, very, very versatile because he has elite range, solid ball skills, but more than anything, he gonna come down and hit you. Makuba plus Reed Blankenship, you're shirt up at the safety position. Plus the linebacker acquired yesterday, shirt up the linebacker position. Howie Roseman, 10 out of 10 on this draft, especially selecting 32nd overall in the first and last in the second, 10 out of 10. Well done.
I love it. And he's so right. One thing you got to remember is where you're selecting in these drafts, it's not as if you're going and rocking at the top of the second round. You're not going up and rocking in the middle of the first round. So you got to get creative. You got to get selective. You got to make sure your draft board is as sexy as humanly possible. And so far, I think it's been a fantastic start for Howie Roseman. And there's actually, I do see this online, which I take social media with a grain of salt here. But there are some people a little annoyed with the lack of maybe a pursuit at tight end, because the Dallas Goedert news has been surfacing for a little bit of time now throughout the offseason. It seems inevitable that he is going to get moved at some point based off of the way Nick Sirianni spoke about him, based off of the way Jeffrey Lurie spoke about him, based off of the way Howie Roseman spoke about him. So the three main staples of this franchise right now pretty much put it out there vocally. This guy's probably not going to be here for the long run. So why wouldn't the Philadelphia Eagles look to go after a tight end? And Luke, I know you're high on the Bowling Green kid. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, he's gone.
He went to Cleveland.
Only a couple of picks after. Harold Fannin Jr., all the numbers in college. Dude's going to be a star. Well, maybe not on the Browns. That might be, a bad spot.
Well, let me ask you this, all jokes aside. And you can be honest, Andrew Mukuba, safety. If this kid, tight end, goes a couple selections behind him, apparently, a lot of receptions, would you have leaned the tight end role over looking at safety? Would you feel more comfortable with Sidney Brown instead of Grant Calcaterra when you weigh out that? Because now you have to play Grant potentially instead, and maybe Sidney Brown could have slotted in. So how do you feel as someone who I know kind of wanted a tight end?
Well, I definitely wanted a tight end, but I completely understand, and I'm for this pick. I support this pick of Andrew Mukuba just because I'd rather take a safety and have another guy there at that second safety spot. I like Sidney Brown. I don't know if he's ready. Tristan McCullum stinks, and we don't really have many other options. I mean, Grant Calcaterra could be all right. We have some other tight ends, and if we're being honest here, safety is more important than tight end, especially with how the Eagles run their offense. It's Smitty, it's A.J. Brown, it's Saquon. I mean, even Jahan Dotson could get some more looks. So I get waiting on a tight end, and we really needed a safety. I don't know how you can go into it with Sidney Brown. And how it's looking right now, there's been zero movement on Dallas Goedert. There hasn't been even an updated rumor about if he could go. It's looking like he has zero trade value. There's a really good chance that the Eagles are going to go up to him and say, hey, listen, dude, we're either going to cut you here and you're going to make $4 million, $5 million on whatever other team you sign with, or you can stay here and make $4 to $5 million.
Now that's interesting. You're probably right. I would have expected maybe there to be a little bit more buzz, but you never know. With the snap of your finger, something like that could be moved rather quickly over this weekend. I heard Garofalo talking about this a little bit throughout some of his social media hits, and he was saying that don't be surprised if this weekend Dallas Goedert is moved on from the Eagles. So just something to keep our eye out on. But one thing I want to know from fans outside of just your reaction to the two picks so far in Jihad Campbell and Andrew Mukuba is, it's so obvious that they are going with this youth movement defensively. And there was always a time where that scared me, that it was just too raw. It was a lot of guys that just didn't know necessarily how to play at a winning level in the pros, because it's not easy. It's a very difficult transition. No matter if you play in the SEC, if you play at a Big Ten school like Michigan or Ohio State or one of the top dogs, it is a completely different game when you're in the trenches going up against these big men and eating up all those snaps and not just being out there and being available, but winning these snaps, winning consistently, play after play, down after down. That is a whole nother element. Not just surviving, not just doing okay, but winning a Super Bowl level of dominance. That's where you need to get to, and it's hard to ask youth to do that with the snap of your fingers, although we watched Coop get a pick six against Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl, which was pretty damn special. We've seen Q lock up the best receivers in the game, and we watched Jalen Carter, after 1 year of hitting a wall, learning how to eat every snap there is and just blowing through double teams left and right. So he figured it out rather quickly. Is there any fear that it's going to be hard to duplicate a ton of success as you even continue to plug in younger talent? Now, I don't have fear because I do think we live in a different world of athletes now. These guys train and they have nutrition and they have their bodies prepared in such a totally different manner than what it was 10, 15 years ago, where it's 24/7. This is your job prior to even probably hitting puberty. I don't know if that's healthy or not, but it seems like some of these guys, I was listening on draft night to them, go into one of the homes, and there was the whole family, and they were sharing a story about how one of the draft picks was with the other draft pick at 8 years old, training in the weight room, squatting a couple 100 pounds. So I almost wonder if that makes it easier for these guys to step right into the league because of the preparation that they've been doing physically. And I'm sure if they're wired in a way where they think the pros is a real possibility, psychologically, mentally, they're probably approaching it to a different level as well, knowing the social media background. I just think it's a new era of athlete where the youth doesn't scare me. And whether I'm being fooled by it or not, I just watched it work. I just watched it have an extreme benefit. Now, there was some non-youth out there, CJGJ, Darius Slay. Those are very important people. Brandon Graham, a very important role. And Josh Sweat, he's played a lot of football and has a lot of knowledge and has soaked up a ton of information on how to be successful. Milton Williams wasn't, in year 1 or year 2. So there were a lot of guys that contributed to the defensive side that helped you win a Super Bowl that weren't on the super young, very new to the NFL world type of, vibe. Does that concern you if you head into this year with this new wave of extreme youth still trying to be super competitive? It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me whatsoever. I'm actually intrigued by it because I think if these kids maximize their skills, I think Jihad Campbell could be one of the best linebackers in football. Pass rushers, however you want to label him. I think he's going to be a freak that's unstoppable all across the board. Intelligent, making phenomenal reads, just incredible block, pass breakups. Excuse me, lost my train of thought there. But all of it. I think he's going to be everywhere. So I'm actually in love and thinking about this process and what they could be as they continue to grow throughout their journey. And I think they can still be very, very competitive, obviously, when you have the core that you have with guys running into year 2 after a Super Bowl championship with Vic Fangio as well. So 215-592-9494. Youth on the defense. That's clearly their philosophy. Does youth scare you, or are you like me where you're like, let's go, baby. Let's get after this puppy. I'm excited to see these young kids, and they're obviously talented players that have some high upside. So let's get ready to go to work, because that's where I'm at here, and we'll go to the phones. Let's go to Bree to start things off here. Bree, you're on WIP. What's up, Bree?
Hi, bros. How you doing?
Well, I have a bone to pick with you.
Yeah, you got a bone to pick.
All right, so for everybody listening, Bree was on Instagram, and she was commenting away on some posts, which is great. We love the interaction. I click on the profile. You ready for this? It says Seahawks Nation with blue hearts, green hearts, Seattle Seahawks. Bree, explain yourself.
Okay, so my dad spent time when he was a kid over in Washington.
Okay.
And when I was growing up as a kid, we kind of watched both teams or whatever. And for some reason, I just liked watching the Seahawks when I was like 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 years old.
Okay.
So that's just what I grew up watching. And, my parents were kind of over Andy Reid a little bit. So they were just not watching football a lot at all. So I was watching the Seahawks, and then when they got rid of Andy Reid, I was like, well, I'm not just going to hop the bandwagon. I'm a Seahawks fan. Now, I have extreme loyalty for the Birds. I love the Birds so much. Like, the only time I would ever root against them is when they play the Seahawks, and that's never going to happen because my football team is terrible.
Hold on.
But my football team's terrible, bro. It's never going to happen.
Bree?
Yes?
You just said the worst thing you could have ever said in the history of trying to sell me that you're actually an Eagles fan. Because if you said, Bree, if you said these two teams meet and it's Birds all day, I'd be disappointed, but I can at least maybe see where you're coming from. Your response was terrible.
I know, listen. It's just because I have loyalty for the Seahawks, that's all. But I will tell you, I have more faith in the Eagles than my family does half the time. And they're all diehard Birds fans. So I spend hours arguing on behalf of the Birds. I love the Birds. You have the best team. You have the best GM. You're never going to have to worry about me rooting for the Seahawks because we're never going to have to play you guys because we're a terrible football team.
You don't know that, though.
But
no, hold on a second. I need one more thing to say, then we can move on.
Yes.
You just stated, and I don't even know if you picked up on this. You said we won't even play you guys. You looked at Eagles fans in the eyes and just said, you guys, as if you are not a part of us.
I mean, okay. Mom,
Wow.
Mom. Am I an Eagles fan? She roots for the Eagles as much as she does the Seahawks. I know it's tough, bro, but don't think differently of me.
All right, Bray, and thank you for the call. I need to take a couple deep breaths here. I was going to let her continue. I know she wanted to say something about the Phils, but I'm a little bit broken. Luke, your thoughts?
You got to have one. You can't have equal teams.
Agreed.
You can't have equal teams.
Agreed.
Now, listen, we've all had second teams where it's the Eagles and then this. When I was younger, when I was like 10, my second team was the Chargers because I'd play Madden 05 and 06 and run the halfback toss with LaDainian Tomlinson every time. And
I've heard of
the
him.
Money. Mm-hmm. Great play, great game. So I always liked the Chargers growing up. I honestly liked the Seahawks growing up, too, because I liked Richard Sherman. But the Eagles were always my number one, and they were my number 1 through 32. You got it. You can't have equal teams. One's got to be above, and honestly, deep down, Bree, one is above the other. The Seahawks are above the Eagles, or vice versa. They're not equal.
Well, we know which one it is. She said if they met, it's Seahawks.
Yeah, the you guys thing was...
I know.
You know.
Guys. So I'm just letting everybody know. Guilty. Bree is... I'm not going to say she's not a part of the community here on WIP because she calls in, and I love that, and I respect that, and I love talking sports. But I'm hurt.
That's fair.
I'm hurt.
That's fair.
Let's go to Lou in Northeast Philly. You're on WIP. What's up, Lou?
Yeah, how you doing, Brodes?
Good. How are you?
I talked to you last night after the Jihad Campbell pick. I believe he's damaged goods.
Why do you say that?
Because I was talking with somebody, with a fellow coworker of mine who he looked him up, and it says he saw that he needs surgery on his other shoulder as well as the one that he has surgery on. So I think, like you said, and like we both said last night, the pick should have been he should have stayed at 32 and took Donovan Ezeraku. I think his performance tonight, the second and third round, was heinous at best. I did not need to see the Dallas Cowboys take him at 44, and then they show me Jerry Jones with smiling and smirking in their war room. I needed to see Jerry Jones with a constipation look by Roseman. If he was any kind of a GM, he would have moved up instead of thinking of moving back.
Well, hold on, Lou. I'm serious.
I was never a Howie proponent.
The guys he has 2 Super Bowl trophies.
I don't care. Listen,
you don't care?
This guy blew so many drafts.
No. But no. He has hit on so many drafts in a row that people are confused on how he's even doing this.
Listen. I understand what you're saying, but I was never a Howie proponent. And he proved my point tonight with the second and third round.
We don't know yet.
And listen, and Makuba, I looked him up. I was following the draft on the CBSSports.com app on my phone, and I was following on the draft tracker. And they have a thing where you tap on the best available. Well, I tapped on the Eagles thing on the pick on Makuba, and he had a 4th round grade. So why the hell is he taking him in the second round when he's got a 4th round grade?
Well, that doesn't mean that guy's right. You know how many players play that are second round picks, third round picks?
As far as I'm concerned, he should have moved up to where Chicago was. They had 39 and 41. You see, they traded away 41. That's where they should have moved up to and gotten Ezeraku.
I think you're overreacting a little bit here. I think you're overreacting. Here's my one thing too, as well, with just. I love you, Lou. I really do. I love you. But when I say he's got 2 Super Bowls and you say you don't care about that, isn't that why we do this?
I know that. What I'm saying is, I don't put the whole onus on him as far as bringing us the Super Bowl. You had what's his name there? Doug Peterson got us the first one.
Whoa. Who puts the pieces together?
He went out and got players. Okay, these last couple of drafts, not including this draft here, the previous couple of drafts, he hit on a lot of the picks. This draft here, he reverted back to his.
You don't know that. You can't make that assessment today.
I'm seeing the evidence in front of my eyes.
What? Well, hold on. The injury thing's unfair because Landon Dickerson had 1 billion injuries, and now he's an all-pro left guard because this medical staff that Howie Roseman changed recently, has made an impact.
But listen, you and I both agree Ezra should have been the right pick.
I like Ezra, but I can't tell you that Jihad Campbell's the wrong pick over him. I like Jihad Campbell a lot.
Well, if he would have moved up and got Ezra instead of the Cowboys getting him, I would have been a lot happier. As it stands, I am flabbergasted and annoyed and peeved.
Lou, I love you, dude. I love you, Lou. I really do love you. That's extreme. And I like Ezra for sure. But I would not be shocked if Jihad Campbell is better than Ezra. I like Ezra. Look, you get 16 and a half sacks in one season playing college football. And I know it's not, big-time Alabama. He played at Boston College. But you don't accidentally get 16 and a half sacks. He was a top-of-the-second-round style of pick, which could be a 50-50 on did he go in the back round of the first round? Did he go in the beginning of the second round? Hell, Cooper DeJean was a second-round pick. He could have easily been a first-round pick based off of his rookie season. So, but that's my point also with the fourth-round grade. People are wrong all the time on their assessment. Howie Roseman has actually been correct with the assessment more than anybody else in football over the last 3 or 4 years. We can't make the assessment today that he screwed up. It's a little too quick on the trigger there on that ruling. We don't know yet. Let's wait and see. And truth be told, and I was one of these people too, 4 weeks into the season, we said Nolan Smith stinks and he's the worst pick in the first round. And then he ends up having, 2 sacks against Green Bay. He had 4.5 sacks maybe in the playoff run off the top of my head. So we got to give these guys some time here. Kyle, we're flipping over producers at midnight. Kyle walks into the producer studio, and that's the first thing he gets hit with.
I was not expecting that to be the first thing I heard tonight. Look, I hate to be, because I know that it's you have to basically just wait and see, but you have to have trust in what the Eagles are doing. Howie has not had the draft record that he had 6 years ago where he would whiff on picks and it was kind of egregious. That's kind of changed, and whatever Lou's grade was on whoever they're going to draft might be different than what the experts are saying or what's different than what the Eagles actually do, but I'm satisfied, especially with the Jihad Campbell pick. I don't have any issues with that. Andrew Mukuba, we'll wait and see. I have seen people say that they thought he was going to go later in the draft than he did, but if the Eagles feel like that's a guy that's going to fill a position of need that they think can make an impact, who am I to say that they're wrong? They've been so good at drafting, especially of late, that I will give them the benefit of the doubt if they think this is a guy that's an impact.
Yeah, and what I saw out of Makuba was high third round. So he went late second round. Once you get to that portion of the draft, if you draft second round super late, and this guy's projected on mocks to go top 10, and let's not act like mocks are end-all be-all, by the way. These mock people, they throw 50 versions out of the mock, and there's a billion different things on every single mock they throw out. So they're going to be right eventually because they throw 50,386 different scenarios out there. They're going to be right on some and wrong on others. But what I can't stand for is saying that Jihad Campbell is damaged goods when I already have an example of Landon Dickerson being damaged goods, and it wasn't the case. I trust their homework on the medical staff. I've watched this organization twice now go to Super Bowls in the last 3 years, as healthy as any team I've seen make it that far deep into a playoff run. 2022, all the starters available. 2024, so much healthy talent. You don't get it like the Eagles have had it over the late runs, and I don't think that that's luck. I think it was looking internally, seeing what they needed to change medically. They did that, and now they're seeing the results of it, and I trust their homework on that type of information. That's a big deal. Howie Roseman's not half-assing the Jihad Campbell history of his injury status. It's a big pick for him. All right, let's go to Frank in New Jersey. What's up, Frank?
Hey, Brodes. How's it going, man?
What's up?
Not much. I have a very different opinion from the last caller. I like the Makuba pick. Certainly, and this is very consistent with the Eagles draft picks. It's guys that are multi-dimensional. And they have a lot of versatility to them. Like Makuba can play on the slot. He can play safety, similar with Jihad Campbell. He can rush the passer. He can drop back. This is a consistent theme with the Eagles draft picks the last couple of years, versatility. I don't think Ezeraku can really excel in man coverage. And, I was looking and comparing the two between Jihad Campbell and Ezeraku, and really, it looks like Ezeraku just really excelled in his senior year.
Yeah, he had a breakout 16.5 sack type of season there, rushing the passer at the back end. But, look, I mean, when it comes to Makuba, I think his senior year at Texas stood out significantly more than some of the stuff happening at Clemson. So I don't know if that's out of the norm. That as the guys develop and they get into their mature college years, they probably do seem to kind of have that season that stands out,
Yeah, and, shifting gears into day 3. I know Howie traded down. We have 2 picks in the 4th round, and I personally would like to see Jack Sawyer, and potentially, depending on what we do with Dallas Goedert, maybe Gunnar Helm from Texas as a tight end.
I'd be interested. I'd be interested in looking in the tight end direction, depending on what they do with Goddard. And thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. The way I expect them to go after this day 3 with all these draft picks and darts is the word I was looking for. It was weird listening to Howie kind of break down exactly what went down today and all the trade backs. He said that he was going to sleep on it and regroup looking at tomorrow with all of the selections. So it almost felt to me that he wasn't necessarily sure which way he was going to go about this. Not that he's heading into it blindly, but there's a lot of different avenues that you can go. You can continue to stockpile even more ammo, and you may think, Brodes, they already have so much for next year. There's no such thing as having too much. There's no such thing as having too much ammo when it comes to these assets. You can always, you can just keep moving back and back and back where these 2026 picks, you trade back in that draft, they have 27 picks until whenever you need them stockpiled, you stockpile them year after year after year, which is not a bad mentality. Or they decide to maybe take a couple pass rushers on the defensive side of the ball, and if they think they can get maybe 3 defensive pass rushers and maybe 1 or 2 hits, and they're just in rotation. They don't need to be the end-all, be-all, greatest defensive end to ever exist. But if you're drafting someone in the 4th round, if you're taking maybe a couple defensive ends, maybe a defensive interior lineman with some pass rush upside, and you take that in the 5th round, you take a couple of those guys in the 5th round, maybe 2 of them battle it out, and 1 actually ends up winning the battle, then they slide in and take over a Jomo's role, as a Jomo slides up and takes over Milton Williams' role. And these are just ways to sort of continue to stretch out your roster with depth. That's a way to do it. I think that's going to be in play. So I think that's there. And don't be surprised if you get one of those project offensive linemen that have some really good attributes, a really interesting skill set, but nowhere close to being polished, and you stash them. And you let Jeff Stoutland go to work, and you let him watch whatever, if he's a guard, if he's a tackle, you watch Mailata, you watch Lane Johnson, you watch these guys. Or if you're tackle, that's who you watch. If you're a guard, you watch Landon Dickerson, you watch whoever slots in over at right guard, although maybe not if it's Tyler Steen. Don't watch Tyler Steen, go watch everybody else. You know what I mean? But don't be surprised if that's an avenue that they take. So there's some things that they can do here on day 3. This is definitely a day, though, where it's a little less intense for me. I think it's more, let's throw some things at the dartboard, see what works, and let's trade back when warranted. And we'll see what they come up with. But the meat and potatoes was over the last 48 hours, and they walk away with Jihad Campbell and Andrew Mukuba. And it's 2 players that I really think can help this team right away. I could see Campbell starting day 1. I could see Makuba beating out Sidney Brown and starting day 1. Getting 2 starters and then potentially maybe a rotational piece or so in day 3 of the draft is pretty good to walk away with year 1 if that's how it transpires. Let's go to Mike in South Carolina. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Brody. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you?
Great show.
Great show. Thank you.
Hey, before I forget, I have a Phillies point I want to make.
Oh, okay, yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
But ultimately, so I'm in South Carolina. I moved here about 3 months ago, but before that, I was in Alabama for about a year and a half.
Okay,
but I'm from Lansdale. I went to Penn State, so the culture down here is college football.
Sure.
And living in Alabama, I will tell you what, he's explosive.
Jihad Campbell, you're talking about.
Campbell.
Yeah,
Campbell.
he's amazing, dude. He really
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Explosive. I watched, because I was in Alabama for the college football season. And obviously that is about everything there is down there. You know, they don't have an NFL team, right? So college football. And a lot of Eagles fans down there, actually, because Alabama and Georgia, you know, both. But that's a special guy. I know he got hurt kind of late, but he is that to get him at 31, and the fact that the team we beat in the Super Bowl traded with us.
Well, they were definitely going linemen. They really needed to help protect Pat Mahomes, so they were going to go linemen the whole way. But here's the one thing, and I don't want to downplay Zach Bond's greatness and how awesome of a year he had, but I think that you are going to find out that Jihad Campbell can be, and he was an all-pro. So again, I don't want to downplay an all-pro season from Zach Bond, but I think you can get a higher ceiling of last year's Zach Bond consistently if Jihad Campbell really blossoms into what they believe he can be. And if that's your cornerstone, then that's insane. And probably even more pass rush ability than Zach Bond. So he could even do maybe even more